It's time for the real Jonathan Smith Show. This is Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Hopefully you're having a nice week. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube over at Indy's Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're listening via that Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you get your apps. You can also use that to listen to the Dan Dockett Show from noon to 3. Maybe you're watching on Twitter. Maybe you're listening via 1430 AM on the radio. It's a big Wednesday. Of course, we're going to talk Mike Woodson and IU and Purdue. That's coming up here in about 20 minutes. Tony East coming on at 11 to talk Pacers and trade deadline because, the trade deadline stuff officially begins when Miles Turner to the Lakers starts getting thrown around. And he's playing really well this year, one of the better years of his career. He's fifth in the league in blocks right now, and so he's defending the rim and making threes, doing all that good stuff. But he's playing a large role in the fact that the Pacers are absolutely rolling right now. They're tied with the Houston Rockets for the best record in the NBA over the last 10 games at 8-2. They're rolling, and it's not because of their offense. It's because of their defense. Now, don't get me wrong. The offense has been great, ninth in offense over the last 10 games, but it's the defense, man. It's been outstanding. They're now 5 games over 500. They have a pretty firm grasp of that 5th seed, creeping up on the Bucks to potentially grab that 4 seed here soon. Like, they're playing really, really well. They're second in the NBA in defensive rating over the last 10 games, despite giving up 140 to the Spurs. And they're still the second best defensive team in the NBA over those last 10 games, 9th offensively. And they have finally turned the corner, and they're doing the thing that we all wanted to see them do this year. And that's actually play defense. They were so much fun to watch last year, just pace and pushing the ball in transition and hitting guys open for 3 and, Tyrese Halliburton getting in the lane and, all those things. And it was fun to watch, and, the lobs to Obi Toppin, and all those things are still happening, but they're doing it while also starting to get stops on the defensive side of the ball. Okay, and it's finally happening. They struggled early, when they had a bunch of players out, Aaron Nesmith and Ben Shepherd, and Tyrese Halliburton seemed a little gimpy there to open the season, but they have turned a corner, and they are now starting to play real, legitimate defense. Now, as great as that is, as happy as I am with the fact that they're actually playing defense now, there's something that now needs to be improved upon. And it's Tyrese Halliburton's aggressiveness. When he is aggressive, when he looks to actually score the basketball, they win games. The Indiana Pacers are 14-4 in games that Tyrese Halliburton has taken 15 shots or more in. They are 15-2 in the games where he scores 20 points or more. Tyrese Halliburton has played in 44 games this year. He's only taken 15 shots or more in 18 of them. And that's just not enough. Pretty clearly, that's just not enough. It's problematic. Like, Tyrese Halliburton is the Pacers' best offensive player. That's why they're paying him a boatload of money. Okay, he can score. He's their best three-point shooter. He's one of the best players in the NBA when it comes to setting up teammates and getting those guys shots. He's incredibly unselfish, and it's one of the reasons why the Pacers are so good. It's one of the reasons why they're so enjoyable to watch, because he's willing to, give Pascal Siakam the ball. And, when guys are open, doesn't really matter who they are, he's going to make the right play. And I think it's part of why the Pacers have so many guys that can play valuable minutes for them, because they've got this point guard in Tyrese Halliburton who just has his way about making players better offensively. Okay, part of why I like that he's so unselfish is it just makes them more fun to watch. It's why they don't have any Jimmy Butler-like issues, because that dude is straight up selfish. And with that being said, Tyrese Halliburton needs to be just a little bit more selfish. Just a little bit more selfish. Pascal Siakam will have some stretches where he's like, you know what? I'm going to post up, and I'm going to go score. Don't really care who's open. Benedict Mathurin, he'll get in his state where he'll, dribble between the legs 3 or 4 times and take a step back 3. It won't really matter who's open. McConnell has stretches where he really looks to score, and Andrew Nembhard, and so on. But Halliburton never really seems, or he doesn't consistently have these stretches where he's just looking to score the basketball. And we'll see it occasionally. You know, he had that 3-minute stretch against the Spurs in the third quarter where he scored 16 straight points and was like 6 of 6 from the field. Just insane. And, you know, that's obviously an extreme anomaly. I don't expect him to do that every game, but I need him to have stretches like that where there's like 3 or 4 possessions in a row where he's like, you know what? I'm going to go score. Okay, because Pascal Siakam is going to get his shots up. The way that the offense flows, the role players like Nembhard and Mathurin and McConnell and Obi Toppin and so on, like they're going to get shots because of how well the ball moves and flows. But there just needs to be a greater emphasis on Halliburton getting shots. Late in games, if games are close for the Pacers, what they go to is really pretty simple to what a lot of other teams in the NBA go to. Like Pacers need a bucket. They're going Tyrese Halliburton, Pascal Siakam, screen and roll. Their 2 best players are going to be involved, directly involved in the action, and one of them is probably going to score. They don't run that, though, very often throughout the first, 3.5 quarters of the game. They don't, which is fine because you want other players to be involved. That's a good thing. But I do think that they should run it just like a little bit more to get Halliburton going offensively, because once he gets going, like he continues to be aggressive. The Pacers just have to find a way to get him started in terms of being aggressive earlier in games. Once again, he had that amazing 3-minute stretch against the Spurs where he scored 16 straight points. And he did it because he was looking for his shot. And he was hitting threes. He was finishing around the bucket. He's got a nice, reliable pull-up jump shot. He just has to be a little bit more aggressive with the basketball, and he has to look to score because Indiana, the Pacers, they are at their best when Tyrese Halliburton is looking to score the basketball. Speaking of Tyrese Halliburton, Kevin Pritchard has done just an amazing job running this team, building this roster. They've got 11 guys who can go score, or 11 guys who can play valuable minutes in the playoffs. Okay? Like that's what they have, and there's not another team in the league that has this many good players that can play real legitimate playoff minutes. Okay? It's kind of crazy, to be quite honest with you, to have that many guys who can play. And all of this started, this domino effect of putting together this amazing roster started a couple years ago when they decided to move off of Sabonis, to send him to Sacramento for Tyrese Halliburton. And anytime there's a trade, the first question is always, who won the trade? Who won the trade? And when it first happened, it seemed pretty even. Pacers had a guy that they could build around. The, Kings were like a 3 seed that year. It's like, they're going to be pretty good, Seems pretty even, but things since then have changed a lot. Since the Pacers sent Domantas Sabonis out west to Sacramento, the Pacers have just kind of slowly ticked up. Well, Sacramento's been a little more volatile, right? They were up that one season as a 3 seed, and then they were back to making the play-in, and right now, like, they struggled to start the season, but they've won a whole bunch of games. It's just been really up and down, and De'Aaron Fox is officially now looking to be traded away from Sacramento. Yeah, I don't think it's much of a question who really won that trade. Pretty incredible, because the Kings are about to hit that reset button. I'm like, geez, it's like we've, put assets into surrounding De'Aaron Fox with good players, and it's just not really going to pan out for him, which isn't surprising. The Sacramento Kings are pretty impatient. When you're impatient, things usually don't pan out for you. So, at least in the NBA. Speaking of the NBA, I want to occasionally do this quick NBA overview of just different things going on in the NBA that I think are worth noting, especially as we kind of transition more and more into that NBA time of the year. There's still a lot of football, still a lot of college basketball. I've got a lot of stuff on IU and Purdue coming up here in about 10 minutes. But my NBA overview, just really quickly. Amen Thompson for the Rockets is going to be a stud. If you get a chance to watch the Rockets, you absolutely should. This kid was the number 4 overall pick last year to the Rockets. On the season, he's averaging 14 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists per game, while being one of the best defenders in the NBA. Like, that's pretty good production from a year two player. But as I mentioned at the top, the Rockets over their last 10 games are 8-2. Best record in the last 10 games in the NBA, tied with the Pacers, who are also 8-2 in their last 10. And the Pacers are doing it the way that you kind of expect for the Pacers to do it. A lot of offense, a lot of, good three-point shooting, Tyrese Halliburton being the best player on the floor, all those things. And then unprecedentedly good defense to kind of pair with that. The Rockets, meanwhile, now they just got this second-year kid coming into his own. Over the last 10, he's averaging, 19 points, 11 rebounds, and 5 assists per game. And one of the things that I love about the NBA is seeing young players turn the corner. And Amen Thompson he is in the process of doing that. It's incredibly fun to watch. If you get a chance to watch him play, you undoubtedly should. He's going to be in the Rising Stars game this year. So check him out if you get a chance. The other thing worth noting that's going on in the Eastern Conference right now, Boston Celtics are struggling. They've been struggling over the last 20 games. Okay, they're 11-9 in their last 20. That's a quarter of the season of just straight up mediocre basketball. 5-5 in their last 10. And it's not like they're losing to good teams. Like they lost to the Magic, who didn't have Paulo Banchero or Franz Wagner in that game. They've lost to teams like the Hawks, who were fun, but the Hawks had no business beating Boston, and so on. They've lost to some good teams in there, like the Oklahoma City Thunder. So they're struggling a little bit, but they're still a title contender. Like if you picked Boston to win the whole thing right now, I'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense to me. Because they're that good and they're that talented. But we haven't had a repeat champion in the NBA since 08-09? Somewhere there. No, it was the Lakers. Was that 9-10? Either way, it's been over a decade since we've had a back-to-back repeat champion in the NBA. And when I watch the Boston Celtics, it's pretty obvious to see why. They just look out of gas. Jason Tatum's been struggling. Jaylen Brown's been struggling. They aren't shooting the ball as well. They played over 100 games last year, and now we're 40 games into the season. They've played 150 games in the last 18 months. That is a lot of basketball to be played. So I'm very intrigued to see what they look like after the All-Star break, when they get a bit of a break, time to reset, freshen up their legs just a little bit, and kind of see where they go after the All-Star break. Last thing, and then on the other side of the break, we'll talk about Purdue and IU, because there's a lot of history that I want to cover. Nikola Jokic should be the MVP of the NBA. We are seeing a Wilt Chamberlain-like season from him in terms of how unprecedented his numbers are. He's top 3 in the 3 most popular statistical categories. So he's top 3 in points per game. He's top 3 in rebounds per game. And he's top 3 in assists per game. Okay, he's averaging 30 points, 13 rebounds, and 10 assists a night. That's a triple-double, which in and of itself is insane, but it's a little bit more common. We've seen that a little bit more over these past, 10 years with Westbrook and Oklahoma City and all those things. So he's averaging these insane numbers, but it's not just those numbers, 30 points, 13 rebounds, and 10 assists. It's also just the incredible efficiency. He's shooting 57% from the field. 30 points, shooting 57% from the field is absurd. And he's shooting 47% from 3. I believe that's the 5th highest mark in the NBA. It's just incredible. I mean, this guy is doing things that we haven't really seen. Once again, this is a Wilt Chamberlain-like season from a statistical standpoint. Now, it might not be 50 points a night and, 25 rebounds a night, but it's 30, 13, and 10. That's insane. And, as we get closer to the end of the season and all these things, you're going to have people calling for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to win the MVP because the Oklahoma City Thunder are the best team in the NBA, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the best player on that team, and he's averaging, 28 points a night and all these things. But those people are wrong. They're wrong. Nikola Jokic is in the process of putting up what is a historically great season. And when you do that, I don't really care what your record is. You should win the MVP. Speaking of MVP, I'm willing to bet that Braden Smith is going to be the MVP Friday night when Purdue plays host to Indiana. I don't think that game is going to be close. Like, not even slightly. I think Purdue is just going to run them out of the building. And Purdue has ran Indiana out of the building over the last 20 years. When you look at the success of the two programs, I'll dive into the numbers behind that when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
The best takes, stories, and entertainment. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Twitter, the Indy Sports Ticket app, or 1430 AM. Indiana going on the road Friday night in a game that the entire state will be tuned into. Indiana taking on Purdue. Can't wait to watch this game. I don't think that this game's going to be close. I think Purdue's going to absolutely blow IU out of the water on Friday night. Don't think this game is going to be close at all. And when you compare these two programs over the last 20 years, it hasn't been close at all. The last 20 years of college basketball in the state of Indiana have been defined by two things. Brad Stevens going on the two unprecedented runs at Butler to the Final Four, and Purdue's consistency. What has Indiana done in the last 20 years that makes you stop and go, wow, Indiana that year was amazing? What, the year they were a 1 seed with Tom Crean and couldn't make it past the Sweet 16? Come on now. Meanwhile, Purdue has been consistent. Matt Painter has shown up, because this is year 20, and done nothing but build a consistently competitive program. Listen to the difference between these two programs over the last 20 years since Matt Painter was hired. The overall record favors Purdue. Purdue is 463 and 208 in the last 20 years. Meanwhile, Indiana is barely above 500, 375 and 361. In the Big Ten, Purdue, 226 and 99 over the last 20 years. Indiana's 168 and 181. I was taken aback when I saw that. Indiana has a losing record in conference over the last 20 years. I would say that is below the standard. 25 win seasons. Purdue's had 11 in the last 20 years. Indiana's only had 4. Big Ten regular season champs. Purdue's been the Big Ten regular season champ 5 times in the last 20 years. Indiana has done it 0 times. The Big Ten tournament champs. Purdue's won that Big Ten tournament twice. Indiana hasn't won it in the last 20 years. When you look at just individual players, Purdue doing a little bit better. Big Ten Player of the Year, they've done it 4 times to Indiana's 1. National Player of the Year, Purdue 2 times to Indiana's 0. Total head coaches in the last 20 years for Purdue, it's 1. It's the one and only Matt Painter, one of the best coaches in all of college basketball. Indiana has had 6 different head coaches in the last 20 years is pretty incredible. NCAA tournament appearances, Purdue's at 15, Indiana's at 9. By the way, that's out of 18 because that includes this year. And, obviously the COVID year, they didn't have the tournament. So Purdue has made 15 out of the last 18 NCAA tournaments. Indiana's made 9 out of the last 18. Total tournament wins, Purdue's at 24, Indiana's at 10. Sweet 16s played in, Purdue's at 7, Indiana 3, all under Tom Crean. But here's the thing about Tom Crean. He didn't win any of those Sweet 16 games. He lost all 3 of them. Elite 8 appearances, Purdue 2, Indiana 0. Final Fours, Purdue 1, Indiana 0. National championship game appearances, Purdue 1, Indiana 0. And finally, NIT invites over the last decade. So this isn't even the full 20 years, but over the last 10 years, Indiana has been invited to the NIT 5 times. Purdue hasn't been invited once. And that is the only category that Indiana leads Purdue in. NIT invites. Now, I must raise a question because it's Wednesday, which means it's over the hump day in honor of Mike Woodson and his never-ending pursuit of getting Indiana over the hump. Is over the hump now defined as just making the NCAA tournament? Because that's kind of what it feels like on this over the hump day in honor of Mike Woodson.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike? Listen, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Woo-woo! Hump day!
As a coach, I gotta get us over that hump. I gotta get them comfortable, knowing that you're gonna be in close games and you gotta make plays coming down the home stretch. I mean, in the tournament, we were right there. I just didn't get them over the hump, man. And that's something that I live with every day of my life. Because I truly believe that was the team to really make some noise and get to the finals, and I just couldn't get them over the hump.
Mike Woodson, just not able to get his teams over the hump, not really even able to get them into the NCAA tournament. And that's what we're defining as the hump now, then how far that Indiana basketball program has fallen. Once again, 5 NIT invites over the last 10 years is kind of crazy. It is. I just, who would have thought? Who would have thought? There's a way out of this, though. I must say, there is a way for Indiana to get out of this. First, Mike Woodson probably going to get fired at the end of the year. Can they still turn it around? Sure. They've got 4 games against good opponents coming up, 4 teams that are all going to make the NCAA tournament. They go 4-0. They go 3-1. Things change dramatically in a span of 2 weeks. Okay, which would be great for them. I hope that that's what happens, because when Indiana wins games, you listen to me more. That's just really kind of the way that it is. But let's just be honest. Do we really think Omar Ballo, Miles Rice, and Trey Galloway are going to lead the Hoosiers to victories over teams like Wisconsin on the road, a place that Indiana hasn't won in forever, Michigan State, Michigan, and Purdue? Come on now. That's not going to happen. I'd be stunned if it did. When they fire Mike Woodson, because once again, that seems to be where we're headed. People, look, man, you got the student section chanting "Fire Woodson." It's coming. It's coming pretty soon. When that happens, the normal names will be thrown out. It will be, we should hire Brad Stevens. Brad Stevens would totally leave his job with the Boston frickin' Celtics, who are potentially about to repeat. Yeah, he would totally leave the Celtics to come back to Indiana to coach IU, a team that's been in shambles for the last 20 years. He won't come? Okay. Dusty May. He was a manager under Bob Knight. He'll be good. Dusty May. That's who we should hire. Dusty May's not leaving. Okay. Brad Stevens isn't leaving the Celtics. Dusty May, he's not leaving Michigan either. Well, why wouldn't Dusty May leave? Why wouldn't he leave? Why would he stay at Michigan when he could be the coach at Indiana? Come on now. As I just laid out, Indiana, the last 20 years, it's not been great. It's not been great. And everything that Dusty May can accomplish at Michigan, he can accomplish at Indiana. Now, if you wanted to argue, well, it would mean more if he did it at Indiana, because he's from here, and Indiana is more of a basketball school than Michigan is. And even though I'd argue right now, Indiana is definitely more of a football school than it is a basketball school. Like, why would he leave Michigan? He just moved there. He just took the job. He's not leaving. Okay, I don't care who Indiana hires, right? Because this is going to be something that we talk about it's coming, and we're going to talk about it every day, all offseason, until they finally hire somebody. Put it on the record. I do not care who they hire. Just don't do what the Colts did. It's my only request. Don't do what the Colts did. Well, Jonathan, what the Colts do? The Colts hired Shane Steichen, an unproven head coach, and there have been struggles because of that. Indiana, you are a top destination in the country in terms of head coaching spots. Go hire someone who is proven. Go hire someone who has won before. When we look at the last 3 head coaches for Indiana, Tom Crean has had more success than Mike Woodson and Archie Miller. And I think part of that is because we had seen Tom Crean win somewhere before. He had won at Marquette for a long time. He had. Meanwhile, you got Archie Miller, and it's like, well, he won at Dayton. Everyone wins at Dayton. I could go win at Dayton. Okay? It's seriously, come on now. Mike Woodson had never been a college basketball coach before. And look, he'd coached in the NBA, but the NBA and college basketball are 2 completely different things. The NBA is filled with adults who are getting paid a lot of money and don't want to screw that up. And then in college, you got kids that are too dumb to realize that they can screw up how much money that they are making. It is a completely different animal. Okay? Meanwhile, Tom Crean won a lot of games at Marquette. Made it to a Final Four. made the NCAA tournament 5 of his final 7 years at Marquette. Okay, he had proven himself as a coach before making the move to Bloomington. That's what Indiana needs. They need someone who is a proven winner. I don't care if they're a former player, former coach. Doesn't matter to me. I do not care. Just go get someone who's a proven winner. Go hire Chris Beard. Call Shaka Smart. Maybe not. I don't know. But still, that's a guy who's won a lot and is at Marquette and has it absolutely rolling right now. In fact, he's going to beat Purdue, Shaka Smart, more times than Indiana is this year. And half as many chances. Steve Alford, guy who's won everywhere, won at Iowa, won at New Mexico, he's won it at Nevada. Steve Alford, that he'd be a great hire. Or TJ Olsenberger. I hope I said that properly. He's the head coach at Iowa State. He's got it rolling there. Go get someone like that. Go get someone who has won games before. Go get someone who has a winning history of basketball. Okay, make sure they check that box before you give them a boatload of money, because it's Indiana, and they're going to fork out a boatload of money for whoever they hire to be their head coach. Okay, that is the very simple reality of it. Go get a proven winner. Go get a proven winner. That's all that I care about. Okay, because if you do that, then your chances of succeeding are much greater than hiring an Archie Miller who only won at Dayton, or a Mike Woodson who hadn't won anything in his life before. That's the simple reality of it. Another reality in the world of sports is that the Pro Bowl should no longer be a thing. Okay, can we just cancel the Pro Bowl? I don't know anyone who watches it, and why would they watch it when none of the best players want to play in it? Russell Wilson and Drake May are going to be Pro Bowlers this year. That, like, just throw me out there. Like I can play flag football. Let's go. Let's get me out there. Okay, that might be a worse combination than Gardner Minshew and Tyler Huntley being Pro Bowlers a couple years ago. Okay, players clearly don't want to play in the Pro Bowl anymore. Get rid of it. It's not entertaining. It's not fun. It's the only thing on TV. That's why people watch it. Get rid of it. It's not even real football anymore. Okay, the whole dodgeball thing, don't care to see it. Believe it or not, I don't care to see football players play dodgeball. I would like to see football players play football. Maybe that's just me, though. I don't know. The whole catch competition thing, kind of like a football twist on the dunk competition. Good idea. It's a good attempt. I don't know how you make that wildly entertaining. Seriously, like, find something else to do, because this isn't working. Like, it's not. Like, I don't care to watch them do all these different competitions and things. I care to watch them play football. They're not really doing that anymore. The flag football thing is cool. I would rather see them do, like, tryouts for the Olympic flag football team. I think that'd be way more fun to watch. Seriously. I mean, just like, come on now. I'm out on the Pro Bowl. Let me know if you watch the Pro Bowl, because I don't, and I don't think anyone really should. Was talking about Indiana there and the importance of hiring an experienced head coach who has won before. We had 7 NFL head coach openings this offseason. 6 of them have been filled. The New Orleans Saints seems like they're closing in on Kellen Moore, which is kind of surprising. I figured that they were going to hire Joe Brady, offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills, but he very smartly looked at the New Orleans Saints and was like, you know what? I'm good. I don't think I want to go down there and coach that mess. Going to highlight the best NFL head coaching hires from this offseason when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
So you may ask, who are these people? These hundreds of thousands of people who've decided to do something different with how they pay for health care, and they join MetaShare. It's a good question. MetaShare members are people who realize they have a choice. They're not stuck with a status quo that they don't like. And we know this from research of MetaShare members. They tend to have certain values in common, like their faith. They love that they're actually sharing with one another. They don't have to be part of a system that forces them to pay for things they don't support. They also value joining with other people who prioritize healthier lifestyles and encourage each other. They value customer service that's for them and their families, and they find that refreshing. And they're entrepreneurs, people who work in the gig economy, pastors, school teachers, business people who do clearly value saving money. That's a big part of this, up to $500 a month with MetaShare. You too can do something different. You can start saving now. Here's the number. Call 855-51-BIBLE. That's 855-51-BIBLE. 855-51-BIBLE.
Unadulterated sports talk with unfiltered takes. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's on the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you get your apps. Maybe you're watching on YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on Twitter, __ Jonathan Smith, if you want to follow me there. I want to talk about the best NFL head coaching hires that have, transpired over the course of what has been, the start of the offseason for some of these teams. But before we do that, there's two things that I just want to touch on really quickly. There's this story that I keep seeing go around, and it really bothers me. There's a 489-pound obese female rapper named Dank Damas who is suing Lyft for millions of dollars because a Lyft driver wouldn't let her in his car because he said that she wouldn't fit, and that if she did get in, she would put an unnecessary amount of weight on his tires, which is hilarious. But yeah, she's suing Lyft for a lot of money. But can we just agree that I think everyone who's famous now, or like something like this happens, somebody sues somebody else, and like they have a record on SoundCloud, and they're known as, and then people call them a rapper. No, from here on out, we only call people rappers that like casual people know who they are. So like rapper Drake, rapper Kendrick Lamar, rapper J. Cole, rapper Lil Boosie, so on and so forth. Okay. If it's someone that no one's ever heard of before, can we please not refer to them as a rapper, especially when they're just on SoundCloud? Come on now. Let's tighten up a little bit. Okay. The other thing, I saw this as I was scrolling Twitter during the break. Paul George apparently has complained about, not receiving a tribute video since, in all of his times coming back to Indiana. The exact quote is, "I've never gotten a tribute video since I've been going back to Indiana, and that was 8 years ago. It sucks." Yeah, I mean, maybe don't leave. How about that? Like, you want a tribute video, Paul George. Maybe don't blindside the front office, tank your trade value through agents, talk negatively about the organization after the trade, and then expect some like, "Hey man, welcome home. Thanks for losing in the Eastern Conference Finals repeatedly. We really appreciate that." Okay? Like, it's just incredibly ridiculous. You didn't do anything for the Pacers. They should not retire your jersey. Okay? You made the Eastern Conference Finals. Congratulations. Tyrese Halliburton did that his second year here. I don't want to hear about it. Quit whining about it. Quit complaining about it. You're not getting a tribute video. And quite frankly, you don't deserve one. Anyway, the NFL head coaching hiring is almost concluded. The Saints seem like they're apparently closing in on hiring Kellen Moore, offensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles, also the winningest quarterback in the history of college football. So I just want to run through all the teams that hired someone, whether or not it's a good or bad hire. Let's start with the Patriots. Best hire. Patriots made the best hire of anyone out there. It's Mike Vrabel. Okay. It's a great job. You get this kid in Drake May, who's a Pro Bowler as a rookie. You get him. And look, if you have a good young quarterback that people think can develop, then your chances of hiring a good head coach skyrocket. That's really what we saw in this hiring cycle. Okay, Mike Vrabel went to New England, I'm sure in part because he knows the people there and he played for them for a long time. But I'm sure the other part of it is he gets this kid in Drake May who can really play. And, so he's a winner because of that. Patriots are a winner because of that. Mike Vrabel is a proven head coach. He got Ryan Tannehill to the AFC Championship game. I think he's going to be just fine with whatever that they have going on up there in New England. The second biggest hire, not best, second biggest hire of this cycle, Ben Johnson to the Bears. This is a great job. The Bears have a lot of good players on both sides of the ball. Offensive line needs a lot of work, but you've got Caleb Williams, who seems like he's, undoubtedly has the talent to be a really good player. Now it's going to be up to Ben Johnson to making sure that he capitalizes on all that. But it's a great job. This is a potentially great hire. Okay, we learned this here in Indianapolis. Just because you're a good play caller, just because you're a good offensive coordinator with a lot of good players on offense, doesn't mean that you're going to be a great head coach. Okay, maybe Ben Johnson winds up being a great head coach, but it still remains to be seen. So we'll see kind of how that develops. With that being said, is there another coach in the NFL you would want to help develop your young quarterback other than Ben Johnson with everything that he's done with Jared Goff? Jared Goff was, not exactly desired by everybody when he was in Los Angeles. Sean McVay clearly didn't like him. If he did, then he wouldn't have traded him away. But there were a lot of issues, Sean McVay would basically tell Jared Goff in the headset when he was in LA what to do before the play happened, because defenses would come out, they'd show their hand, and Sean McVay would be like, "Oh, they're in cover 2. Throw this corner route. It should be open." Or whatever it was. And then in the Super Bowl, the Patriots figured out what they were doing, and then things kind of changed from there. And that was, a really bad Super Bowl performance from Jared Goff. But he goes to Detroit. Ben Johnson really revitalizes his career. The way that we perceive Jared Goff now is very different than what we did when he first arrived in Detroit. Ben Johnson, look, if he can develop Jared Goff, who, is a former number 1 overall pick, but, not as talented as Caleb Williams, not as highly touted as Caleb Williams when he was coming out of USC. So if there's anyone who can get Caleb Williams on the right track, I would like to think that it's Ben Johnson, given what he did with Jared Goff. The Jets hired Aaron Glenn. It's an average job and a potentially great hire. This is just the theme all of a sudden. Dan Campbell goes back to the Lions to be the head coach. Mike Vrabel back to the Patriots to be a head coach. Aaron Glenn was a first-round pick from the Jets, headed back now to be a head coach. I think it's an average job. Like, they've got some good pieces. The issue is they don't have a good quarterback. They don't. This is a potentially great hire. Aaron Glenn, what he did with that defense, despite all of the injuries that the Lions fought all year long, really impressive. Good coaches figure it out even when they have a boatload of injuries like the Lions did. They blitzed like crazy, grabbed that number 1 overall seed because of that performance that they put together against the Vikings. Defense was amazing in that game. They just ran into a guy in, Jane Daniels, who's just a little bit better than Sam Darnold, and they couldn't win a playoff game. But what he's done there with that defense has been incredibly impressive. But as I said with Ben Johnson, great coordinators are not always great head coaches. They aren't. Maybe Aaron Glenn winds up being a great head coach. We don't know, but we'll kind of see what happens with them there. I like Aaron Glenn. I think he's tough. He understands football because he played. He was a physical player, and that Jets defense is going to continue to be really good because he's now in that building. Next on the list, the Jaguars. The hire that I probably should have led with, because this is the one that's most important to the Colts. Liam Cohen is the new head coach, and he's interesting. He had this moment. I'm see if I can pull it up at his opening press conference. That's not great at all. Here's Liam Cohen at his opening press conference. It's really cringy. I can't wait to play this guy. He's got this big old smile on his face right after saying it. Like, yeah, I'm so cute. I'm so funny. No, you're not, man. Stop. I don't like it. This is a good job, but Jacksonville seems to be in, they've got some issues right now. They thought that they were going to hire Ben Johnson. They don't hire Ben Johnson. The owner then fires the general manager. Still haven't hired a new general manager. The whole process of hiring Liam Cohen, pretty incredible. Liam Cohen's out and about interviewing for all these jobs. The Buccaneers call him. They're like, hey, we don't want you to go anywhere. We're going to make you the highest paid coordinator in the NFL. Just, come in, sign the paperwork, don't leave. Liam Cohen's like, cool. Not much later, Jaguars call him. They're like, hey, we fired our GM. We want you to be our head coach. We'll let you pick the GM, and we'll also give you Ben Johnson-esque money, which is like $14 million a year. A lot of money, okay? Way more than what Liam Cohen was going to make as the highest paid offensive coordinator in the NFL. Okay, so basically they get Liam Cohen to come back down to Jacksonville. They rush through their other interviews because you have to interview a certain number of minority candidates due to the Rooney Rule. Jaguars do that. They bring, Liam Cohen in like 30 minutes later. He signs the paperwork and bang, he's the new head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And he's got a lot of power. And I think this is going to be an absolute disaster for Colts division rival, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Say, why is that, Jonathan? First and foremost, I think this is a good job for Jacksonville, right? You got a guy in Trevor Lawrence who's won a playoff game, a guy who's won the division. They got some good players on defense between, they've got a defensive end named Josh Allen who can really play. They've got the number 1 overall pick, Walker, from a couple years ago, another defensive end who can really rush the passer. They got a couple good running backs, that Brian Thomas Jr. kid who they took in the first round last year. Seems like he's going to be a really good receiver. It's like they've got some pieces. The reason why I think Liam Cohen's going to struggle is because he's not proven as a coordinator. Say, well, Jonathan, what do you mean? He's coordinator of the Bucs. He was the offensive coordinator of the Bucs for a year. Like, come on now. That's very different than Ben Johnson, who was with the Lions for a prolonged period of time. It's very different than Aaron Glenn, who was with the Lions for like 4 or 5 years. Liam Cohen in Tampa Bay, 1 year. And they're paying him a boatload of money to come in and pick the general manager. Like, that's just too much power for a guy who hasn't done anything. Well, Jonathan, he was really good this year. Yeah. He had Baker Mayfield. And to be fair, Baker Mayfield had the best year of his career this year under Liam Cohen. But, he's also throwing the ball to Mike Evans, and that offensive line down there in Tampa Bay is pretty good. Oh, and let's not forget, it's the worst division in football. I would hope that they found a way to win some games when they're playing Carolina twice and the Falcons twice. Come on now. Now, if this was something that had been happening for multiple years, like if Liam Cohen had done this, 3 or 4 years in a row, okay. Make the hire. Pay him $14 million a year or however much they're going to pay him. But it was only for 1 year. One of the best quotes from Chip Kelly about coaching in the NFL is, he shows up with the Eagles and they're winning games and it's great. And then defenses are like, oh, let's make this adjustment. And they did. And Chip Kelly came out and he said it. He was like, look, I punched, defense punched back. I did not have a counter punch. I didn't have any way to counter what they were throwing at me. And because of that, he went back to college football. Does Liam Cohen have a counter punch? That's the question, and I think we're going to find it out really early on next season. The Cowboys hired Brian Schottenheimer, former offensive coordinator. Oh, man. They fired Mike McCarthy and then hired the offensive coordinator that Mike McCarthy hired. That doesn't make much sense. It's a circus. Like if you think that the Indianapolis Colts are in a bad spot, just do yourself a favor and look at what the Cowboys are doing. It'll make you feel better immediately about whatever Jim Irsay's doing. So Cowboys hire Brian Schottenheimer. It's a circus. Good luck, because I'm sure that there's some Cowboy fans out there because they're everywhere. The Raiders had the second best hire of the cycle. They hired Pete Carroll, who's, going to be, the oldest head coach ever as of week 1. This was an average job. They don't have a quarterback. They're picking 6th in the draft. They're not going to be able to draft one. And I'm very surprised that Pete Carroll actually took this job. Okay. Like, sure, they've got a couple good players, but they aren't winning anytime soon. Not in that division when you're having to play against Sean Payton and Bo Nix and Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and then Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert. They're not winning anytime soon. I'm very surprised that Pete Carroll took what was a pretty average job. Maybe he took it because Tom Brady being there makes things just a little bit more enticing, but I don't know. Really good hire because, Pete Carroll's a proven guy who's won a Super Bowl before and has won games and kind of knows when to move off players. Like he moved off Russell Wilson at the perfect time. So he gets it. He's won games. He's made good decisions throughout his career as an NFL head coach, but I just don't know how many games they're going to win because they don't have a quarterback. Like what, you're going to run Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell out there again? I would not recommend that. Next, the one team who has not hired anybody yet, but it seems like they're going to hire Kellen Moore, Eagles offensive coordinator, is the New Orleans Saints. Okay, job's still vacant. I don't know why anyone would want it other than the fact that it's one of 32 in the world. Okay, they're in cap hell. The quarterback's Derek Carr. They lead the NFL in dead money. If you don't know what dead money is, that's money being paid to players that got cut or are no longer on your roster. Like, they're screwed. They are. Like, they don't have a ton of great players. Their better players are older, like Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, their best receiver. He's not happy. He missed a lot of this season due to injury. I know he's not happy because he was on my fantasy team and he sucked. Terrible. He's got his brother tweeting on his behalf, talking about how terrible things are. And it is just, like I said, it is just not a great place for them to be. And, it's a mess down there in New Orleans. That being said, it's a town that loves football. They find a way to revitalize it. Very similar to Indiana basketball. You will be very, very, very well respected and very well known. So maybe that's the draw of it, other than the fact that it's one of 32. But if I was a head coach, I would do what Joe Brady did, the offensive coordinator of the Bills. I'd be like, nah, I'm cool. Give me one more year. Let me wait till a better job with a quarterback actually opens up. When we come back here at 11 o'clock, Tony East of Locked On Pacers, he is set to join. We're going to continue to talk Pacers and all of those things because we are getting closer and closer to the All-Star break. And then once we get past the All-Star break, things are really going to start rolling for them. So Tony East of Locked On Pacers joining here in about 4.5 minutes.
It's time for the real Jonathan Smith Show. This is Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket, joined by the one and only Tony East of Locked On Pacers. He covers the Pacers better than anyone else. That's why we have him on the show. What seems like every single week. Tony, what's going on, man?
I'm flattered by that opening line, but it's an interesting time covering the Pacers because they barely played at all. They played 2 games in like 10 days.
They have, but I just the official NBA trade season doesn't start until we start seeing tweets about Miles Turner to the Lakers. We've had it every year for like the last ever since Miles Turner showed up. I don't think there's a chance in the world that they move Miles Turner. I think he's way too important to this team. What are the chances that the Pacers do look to potentially move him?
They should have a meeting about it, I guess, because he's on an expiring contract. But I think that meeting should be pretty short, and it should be them saying, "Hey, should we think about this?" And they'd say, "Nope, we're pretty good," and then that's the end of the meeting. Because you're right, he is important to the team, and the reason they have to think about the contract stuff is expiring contracts lead to that conversation naturally, but usually that conversation is more true for teams that aren't going anywhere. Would they rather have the player or get assets that help them long term? Pacers are going somewhere, right? They care about this season a great deal. They're in 5th. They could get to 4th pretty easily with like one more good week. The Bucks lost last night. Turner's been playing quite well for a good stretch of the season. He was good in the playoffs last year. Unless they're like scared to pay him, which would be very telling about the Pacers, by the way, and their thoughts on him and their own spending reality. I don't know why they would consider moving him unless they just get blown away by a several first-round pick package or something like that. Because, like you said, he's very important to what they do, and the cap will go up next year. They might have to move someone else to keep him, which maybe blends into their thinking a little bit. But I see no reason why they should be wanting to move off of him, and the fact that other teams would want him should tell them everything about why the fact that he is valuable and they should want him. He fits very well with their stars.
What do you think he's going to – like you said, his contract is about to expire. What do you think it would cost the Pacers in the offseason to keep him around?
Yeah, if you look at, like, recent center deals, Jared Allen's probably a couple spots above Turner. Sorry, my cat's screaming at me. In the center ranking standings, but they're close. He just got a little over $30 million per year on his extension. Isaiah Hartenstein got 3 for $87, I think, in the off season, but there's a team option at the end of that. Kristaps Porzingis, Brook Lopez, Nick Claxton, they're all in this 25 to 30 million range. So I think that's probably the numbers you will and should hear when it comes to Turner, and the cap's going to go up 10% next year. So if you're Miles Turner, you're banging on the table. Well, his representation, he's not going to do it himself, but you're banging on the table saying $30 million a year. And if you're the Pacers, you say, well, you can't get that from any other team this summer, so we think it should be less than that, but still a fair price, right? So I'd say somewhere in that range. I keep in my head making up I say 3 years because that would line him up with Siakam's deal, and they're a very quality fit in the front court. I keep saying like 3 for 80 to 3 for 90 range makes sense to me. If it goes longer in years, I bet the average annual value would go down a little bit. If it's shorter, only 2 years, for example, it could be a little higher per year, like 2 for 60, 2 for 65. It depends what the Pacers truly prioritize in that way. So that's kind of the range I expect, and that's what the market has set for good starting centers who can contribute in the postseason. If you can't contribute in the postseason or you can't start, you're not going to get that much. But Turner has now proven he can, and he fits very well with the team's 2 best players.
He does, especially that fit thing, man. He fits so incredibly well, joined by Tony East of Locked On Pacers. He screens really well. He shoots the ball. It's really impressive. And I'm curious, do you think that you set better screens than Miles Turner? Because I saw your tweet after Saturday, and you're not wrong. You set great screens.
I run down the floor and pick up. I pick the guy guarding one of my team's better players, and I say, "Come here, it's time."
You got to start shooting the ball, man.
I need to do better on what I do after screens. That's where Miles Turner is very good. He is very masterful at knowing when to pop or when to roll or what the matchup's going to dictate. I just get in the way after the screen. So that's the part where these athletes impress me most.
Yeah. You got to start shooting the ball more, man. Like, you're open, let it go. Like, there's some guys who play who have no business taking jump shots, and they don't realize that, and they're chucking it up anyway, Tony. So next time we play, please take some jumpers.
If we're playing with fouls that lead to free throws, I am ready for the free throw line.
That is true. That is
part
true.
I've got down.
You do. So you mentioned, the Bucks lose last night against the Trailblazers. Jeez. Pacers are pretty comfortably in that 5 seed. They're only a game back of the Bucks for the 4th seed. What do you think their chances are of hosting a first round playoff series?
Man, I mean, it's got to be pretty decent, right? Like, they're right. The way they've been playing since that Charlotte loss has been among the best, 5 to 10 teams in the league, right? So it's certainly reasonable they could get or keep that level up. If they keep defending at an even average rate, then they could certainly keep winning like this, or maybe not to the extent where they're winning more than anybody but like OKC and Cleveland, but they could, be in that, 5 to 10th best team range. And if they do that down the stretch and the Bucks keep wobbling, like the Bucks have, I think, the most games left of anyone in the league. And don't get me wrong, the Bucks are good, but they're a little on the older and creaky side. I watched Chris Middleton score 0 points last night and barely play. So I think they can certainly catch Milwaukee and host the series. I don't know if they can catch the Knicks, but being the 4 seed would be a monumental step for them, right? The last time they hosted a series was 2020 in the bubble. So they didn't actually get any home games out of it. And before that, it was back when Paul George was on the team. So certainly a huge deal that they could even be able to sniff that realm. And they certainly can, right? The teams behind them too, like Miami is in disarray. The Hawks have lost 6 in a row and just lost Jalen Johnson for the season. The Magic might be a team that puts fear in them, but the Magic can't score quite often, right? So it's going to, like, they're probably solidified top 6 now just because so many teams behind them fell apart. Honestly, Detroit might be their biggest threat. So if they can catch the Bucks, which I think they can, they've got a really good shot at it.
Yeah, the Eastern Conference right now is so interesting because it seems like the Pacers, the Bucks, and the Knicks are really the only 3 teams playing well. Like the Cavs are 5-5 in their last 10. The Celtics are 5-5 in their last 10. The Magic are 2-8 in their last 10. It kind of feels like the Pacers are surging at the right time. Boston, to me, is really interesting. I've been watching them a little bit more here as of late. They just look really tired. That's what happens when you play 100 games in a year. Any chance that they fall to a point where the Pacers could potentially catch them?
No, I don't think so. I think they'll figure it out at some point. Like, people pointed to a million things about what has and hasn't happened for the Celtics, and they've been hurt, and like Jaden Springer's been in their rotation and all sorts of different stuff. But just that Tatum isn't playing very well recently. Like, his true shooting percentage in the last month, something like low 50s percentages. And Jaylen Brown's been like, okay, like not at the typical high level Jaylen Brown standard that we've come to know, the last couple seasons. So I kind of feel like it's just that once their stars get in gear and maybe they get a tiny bit healthier, although I don't even think they really need to because they're so deep, that they'll just roll. They'll just start rolling again. So, and I think every reigning champ has some sort of mid-season malaise at some point. Like even the 73-win Warriors teams have that. So, it's just the Nuggets last year. Like, it's just kind of how it goes. I don't know that I would ever be worried about them stumbling, but I don't think they can get the 1 seed, right? The Cavs are just such a buzzsaw. So it's just how it's going to go to me. And I think the Pacers can possibly catch the Knicks if they get hurt, but the Celtics they're just too much. Their highest level is too high.
Joined by Tony East of Locked On.
Sorry if I'm floating my voice, Jonathan. We just learned Kelsey Mitchell has re-signed with the Fever officially.
Oh, let's go. That's great.
All right.
That's important.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It's big news.
Have you been watching any of that 3-on-3 league?
Yeah, it's fun. It's cool. Full court 3-on-3 is really interesting to me.
Okay. I haven't watched. I've seen clips, and it's all people making fun of Angel Reese. That's all I've seen. But that's good though. No, Kelsey Mitchell's a really good compliment to Caitlin Clark. Their season starts in just a couple months, right?
Yeah, their training camp will be in like 2.5 months from now, like late April. So yeah, they're sneaking up. Usually this time of year they're prepping for the draft, and free agency is less of a thing. But free agency is a big deal for the Fever this year.
It is, that's a good thing. Be interesting. That's really all that I want. Joined by Tony East of Locked On Pacers. We're talking about Boston there. Here's my favorite stat for Boston in the month of January.
Oh, no.
They're a net negative when Jaylen Brown's on the floor.
Oh, man.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
Yeah.
He was so good in the postseason last year. Like, he is very good. Like, he signed that Supermax for a reason. But people in the NBA will be like, yeah, I'm kind of worried about that contract, because he's, like, clearly the second best player on great teams. But he can certainly come and go. Like, his game is certainly very much a create for myself and not others kind of game. And if the Celtics aren't humming, he just kind of stands out like a sore thumb a little bit because of that, even though he's a great player. So I think that's fascinating. I wonder if that's just like he plays with bench groups more often and they go poorly, but their bench is really good too. Like, I'd imagine that very few guys actually have a negative net rating on the Celtics. That is really interesting.
Yeah, it is. I want to go back to the Pacers. So here's my favorite stat for the Pacers, and it also drives me crazy. Pacers are 14-4 when Tyrese Halliburton takes 15 shots or more. They're 15-2 when he scores 20 points or more. What has to happen for Halliburton to be more aggressive? Because I think it's clear that they are the best version of themselves when he is aggressive and he's looking to really score.
That is a good question. I mean, honestly, I don't even know if it's a team adjustment. I think it's a Tyrese Halliburton adjustment. I don't even mean that to be critical of him, but he's just such a pass-first guy by nature, right? He'll say that about himself, and he's talked about trying to get out of that reality. But, when he starts with Mathurin and Siakam and even Andrew Nembhard and Miles Turner, right? Like, guys who need the ball to do stuff and score points. Like, I think part of what makes him good is he tries to get those guys involved and get them going and find their advantages and keep the game rolling in that way. And like a lot of times that's great, right? The Pacers are good because he does that. Those players put up the numbers they do because he does all that. Like, I don't say all that to disparage the way he plays, the things he does, but certainly it stands out like a sore thumb when there's a night where he has 8 assists and then, takes 9 shots and has 12 points and they lose, or it's like, man, the other team star player took, 18, 20, 22 shots and it changed the game. So that is something that I think he's been working to figure out like his whole career, is what is the right balance of him being a star and like going to get his own buckets and points and being a very efficient self-creator and getting the other guys involved in a way where, they can play their best and the team can play their best. And, he kind of figured it out early last year, and then Siakam came, and now it's his first like star level teammate ever, right? That he's ever had. And he's had to figure out, okay, now what do I do? How much do I get Pascal involved and do I attack? And you've seen that his numbers, for lots of reasons, Buddy Hield being gone, his own injuries, just a lot of changing dynamics have kind of been changed since that trade, right? He hasn't hit that crazy level he had to start last season since. And then you saw like the closest we've seen was that 3-minute stretch on Saturday against the Spurs, right? That was just ridiculous. So I think the way for him to be that player again is all on himself, but I don't know if that is always like, clearly there is a correlation, right? You just nailed it with the stats, but I don't know that that's always the case when I'm like, oh, he should be taking 18 shots tonight. I don't know what the perfect number is just because they have other talent on their team, but he does have to fight himself a lot on like, man, I should go to the floater, or like I should take this 3. And it's so unintuitive for him. And I think that's why that's the case.
Here's what I think they should do. I feel like late in games when they really need a bucket, they do what a lot of other teams do. They take Halliburton and Siakam, they spread the floor, and they go Halliburton and Siakam, screen and roll. And it is designed to get Halliburton, going towards the rim. Siakam can pop, or he can roll, and he can hit that little 12-footer. Like, go to that just like a couple times a quarter. Because I feel like once he kind of gets going, Halliburton, it's much easier for him to continue being aggressive. Kind of like what we saw in the third quarter against San Antonio last game, where he scored 16 in a row. Not saying he's going to do that, but I feel like once he kind of starts being aggressive, it is just easier for him to kind of stay in that state.
Yeah, that is true. And early parts of games certainly tell a lot about what he's going to do. And the way, like the one like very understated thing about his turnaround this season or mid-season, however you want to describe when Tyrese Halliburton started to play better, is he started to drive to the basket way more, right? I don't know if you've thought that or noticed that too, but it feels like he's just putting way more pressure on the rim. And I think that like naturally boosts that aggression that you're talking about, where he has that mindset of, breaking down a defense or getting to his own shot or anything to that extent. So I think there is something to that, especially in crunch time, right? And I forget what game it was. It was when they weren't playing well. I want to say it was Portland, where like down the stretch of that game, they won by 6 or 7. They just went to like Halliburton ball handler, Siakam screener over and over and over. And then they created good shots. It's like, it seems like it's that easy sometimes, and yet it's not. So there is something to that. And I don't know if he needs to be like reminded or how, but yeah, finding that aggressive level to attack the rim as often as possible and as early as possible, I think gets him in the right mindset to be that kind of player. And then you see him score 16 points in 2 minutes and 40 seconds, where the closest shot was what, a 20-footer, a 22-footer, right? So it's just, it's always him fighting himself. Like the best Tyrese Halliburton defender is Tyrese Halliburton, right? And like, I don't even mean that to be critical. It's just the reality of who he is.
Yeah, and you're right. It was the Portland game here in Indy. I went with Amelia, and she did not like me because those final 2 minutes, I kept looking at her and I was like, here comes another Siakam ball screen every possession. I think I got on her nerves just like a little bit. I don't know if you saw this or not. Joined by Tony East of Locked On Pacers. Did you see the Paul George quote about not getting a tribute video?
I saw Dustin's story today. I did not go read the original quote from Kai Carlin. I should have. But I already think there's too many tribute videos. I mean, like,
agreed.
Players way worse than Paul George are getting them. So I think if you are, I think that I already am kind of like, yeah, this is dumb. But like the way when you go out like that, like it's just not going to happen. I get why now they want to like patch that up, but like that was a different front office. It's just weird. Like I can't believe that is a thing that's happening right now.
Do you think Jimmy Butler will get a tribute video when he goes back to Miami?
Oh, yeah, exactly. That's a perfect example, right? Like that's actually like really perfect, right?
Yeah.
He dragged them to 2 finals. Paul George got the Pacers farther than they'd been since Reggie, really ever, right? And so, that kind of stuff really does matter. Certainly, like a lot of fans had high moments with Jimmy and with PG, but then the end when, the end of this kind of stuff's kind of supposed to be like what De'Aaron Fox has had happening right now, right? Where it's like, hey guys, like I like it here, but I probably am not going to be here. Next time I'm a free agent, like you should trade me now. And I guess you could say Paul George did that, but he did it really late and was more demanding, I suppose. So, when the on ramp is cleaner, and like in Fox's case, same thing, he carried them to the highest points they've been. Then yeah, you do it. But when it's like so messy and like there's been planning around you for a while, it just hits different. And so it's like, yeah, Jimmy's a good one too. Man, I would assume he'd still get one, but if it's I don't know, if he really wrecks them on the way out and they get nothing in return for a guy that dragged them to 2 finals, how are fans really going to feel? That's a tough one.
It is. Why would anyone trade for him? I really don't know.
I know. I don't know. People have asked me what the Pacers doing, and I'm like, why would they? Like, he's going to resign? Does he want to be there? Is he going to try when he gets there? I know there's that hilariously old picture of him in a Pacers hat, but I agree. I just like, I don't really know unless it's, it's clearly a money thing, right? Like if the Heat had offered the max extension, I'm sure he would have taken it. And I'm sure he's trying to get somewhere where he can be paid the most money. Hey, look, Phoenix, what's up? So it's just very fascinating to me that anyone would want to do this unless if you're getting Jimmy who's going to try even the rest of this season, I would give up like contracts for him, but no assets, right? So I don't know if this is going to work out, and all the teams that seem like they should have interest don't have a lot of good stuff to trade, right? So like I think the Heat still have to do it because he's such a negative and he's giving them nothing this season, like literally nothing. If they get anything of value, I suppose that's worth it. But I mean, it just sucks. Like it's so. I hate when stories go like this with NBA trades. Like this happened with Kyrie too, where it's just like constant updates that are nothing. Like just do the trade, get it over with, and stop telling me about it. Like I'm over it. It's just too draggy.
I completely agree. Oh, you mean the Heat suspended him again?
Okay.
It's like, oh,
yeah, okay, great. Yeah, can he only play road games now? Like, what are we doing? What? And then like Kevin Love is chiming in on Instagram. I'm like, you're on the team, Kevin Love. Like, what is going on?
Yeah, it's just
so weird.
It's the NBA. That's exactly what it is. It's the best soap opera in the world.
Yeah,
that's what it is. Joined by Tony East
It is.
Joined by Tony East of Locked On Pacers. So you are an IU basketball fan.
I am.
We do this thing on Wednesdays here on my show. We call it Over the Hump Wednesdays in honor of Mike Woodson's relentless pursuit of getting over the hump. And Okay, and the one thing I can't figure out with Indiana basketball is what is the hump? Like Mike Woodson has to do this, and that will be deemed as getting over the hump. Is it making the tournament? Is it making the Sweet 16? Is it just not losing a close game late? What is it?
He did make the tournament that one time.
He's made it twice.
They beat Wyoming. That was pretty fun. I had I actually this is not even like in snark. Like what they were in that 12 seed play-in game that they have now. And I love that. Like if I'm a fan of a team, I want that game because then you're a 12 seed who has a game that you can totally win. So I got to be super hyped that IU won a tournament game even though they didn't win a round. It was very fun. I mean, they've got to look like credible, right? Like they look bad. They got boat race. So they beat USC and everybody was like, wow, this is great. You know, that was their best Big Ten performance, I'd say, this season. And they beat Penn State on the road right before that. Like Penn State's playing okay. You know, everybody felt kind of good about them then. And then 25-point loss in Iowa, 25-point loss at home to Illinois, probably the worst half they've ever played at home, especially under Woodson. Squeak by a bad Ohio State team, lose to Northwestern, lose to Maryland at home with like a what the heck are you doing out of bounds play. They just show some competence. Like that's I think that's all anyone asks for at this point. Like they're going to get smoked on Friday, right? I think you agree.
Oh yeah.
In Mackey, like if they lose that game by 8-12 and like look fine, I think people would be totally okay with that. Like they're not even doing that, and then good, they go to a ranked Wisconsin team. Like it's just they haven't even shown competence despite having a pretty good transfer period, I would say. So that's what I want to see is just like please stop embarrassing yourselves against lower level teams or at home. And that shouldn't be so much to ask, but that's what they are right now.
It is. Their best win on the year is USC, and USC is like 12-7.
Yeah,
which is just
probably. Is that their best win? I think it is.
I don't know. Penn State's kind of fallen off a cliff.
Penn State's, I was gonna say Penn State has not done anything since.
Providence isn't very good.
Providence is not very good. South Carolina's okay, right?
They're like 10-9 last time I checked.
Yeah, they're okay. Yeah, you're right. It probably is USC. And they played very well that game, right? Like Miles Rice looked great. Like Fallow looked all right. Like that's what the vision was, and then they've been just garbage ever since.
It's just, there's a lot of issues there. Like
We're a football school now. I don't care anymore, right? That's what I'm supposed to say, even though I don't believe that.
They're not a football school. Like,
no, never will be.
Yeah, because Coach and I just did way too much stuff there. They were too good for too long to ever not be known as a basketball school, even though they haven't been good in 25 years. Did you know that over the last 20 years, Indiana has a losing record in conference play?
Yikes. Is that true? 20 years?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, I got bored last night.
When I got lucky. Like when I went there, that was the Yogi teams that were like very good and competitive and like a Final Four contender. They didn't make it that far, but like I went and watched them beat Kentucky to make the Sweet 16. So in my head, they've been good for like a decent stretch of time now. But they were obviously awful in the late 2010s when they had recruiting scandals and such. But yikes, that is rough.
Yeah, it's just like you said, it's rough. I hope they play well on Friday night. I want IU Purdue to be a good close game. Here's what I think. I think that they come out like the first 7 minutes. It's like, oh, this is what like the team with the number one ranked transfer portal class in the country should look like. Like, here we go. And then the last, 33 minutes, it won't be close. It'll be all Purdue.
Yeah, that is exactly what I think. The only time they've won in Mackey in forever is like Hood Schifino going insane.
Yeah, it's almost like when you have really good guards in college basketball, you win more games. We've only known this for forever.
A Miles Rice masterclass might lead to a close game, but definitely not a win for sure.
Yeah, they need a little bit more than that. Tony, thanks for your time, man. As always, Pacers tonight at 7:00. We getting locked on Pacers right after it?
Yes, sir. Yes, you will.
Sounds good. Tony, thanks for your time, man. See ya.
You got it. See ya.
That is Tony East of Locked On Pacers. Pretty solid pickup basketball player as well. Does a great job covering the Pacers and the Fever. And he, like many of us, just want Indiana basketball to get back on track. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, I got more stuff on Indiana basketball as we continue Over the Hump Wednesday in honor of Mike Whitson's never-ending pursuit of getting over the hump.
Often imitated, never duplicated. The Real Jonathan Smith Show. This is Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Hopefully you're having a nice week. I know I am. It's gonna be capped off hopefully in a nice way. Purdue taking on IU at Mackey Arena Friday night at 8 o'clock. And it's Wednesday. and which means it is Over the Hump Wednesday in honor of Mike Woodson and his relentless pursuit of getting your Indiana Hoosiers over the hump.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Woo-hoo! Hump day!
No, as a coach, I gotta get us over that hump. I gotta get them comfortable, knowing that you're gonna be in close games and you gotta make plays coming down the home stretch. I mean, in the tournament, we were right there. I just didn't get them over the hump, man. And that's something that I live with every day of my life. Because I truly believe that was the team to really make some noise and get to the finals, and I just couldn't get them over the hump.
Mike Woodson just never quite able to get his teams over the hump. And honestly, when you look at Indiana over the last 20 years, they've struggled to get over any sort of hump. When we look at the last 20 years of college basketball in the state of Indiana, I think that it's been defined by two different things. Brad Stevens at Butler, going on those two unprecedented runs to the Final Four, and Purdue's consistency. Indiana, in the last 20 years, has done nothing of note. Oh, well, what about that one year with Tom Crean, where they were the number 1 overall seed and they lost in the Sweet 16? What was the last part of that sentence? Oh, they lost in the Sweet 16. Gotcha. Yeah, no one cares, man. Sorry. Nothing of relevance in the last 20 years. Meanwhile, Purdue's been incredibly consistent. Matt Painter has shown up because he got hired 20 years ago and has done nothing but build a consistently competitive program. Listen to the difference between these two programs, Indiana and Purdue, over the last 20 years since Matt Painter was hired. Purdue's overall record is 463 and 208. Indiana's 375 and 361. So they're 14 games over 500 in the last 20 years. Purdue, in the Big Ten over the last 20 years, is 226 and 99. Indiana, meanwhile, has a losing record in the Big Ten over the last 20 years at 168 and 181. 25 win seasons. Purdue has 11. Indiana only has 4. Purdue has won the Big Ten regular season 5 times in the last 20 years. Indiana has done it 0 times. Big Ten champions, the Big Ten tournament champions. Purdue's been that twice in the last 20 years. Indiana's done it 0 times. Big Ten players of the year. Purdue has had 4 in the last 20 years. Indiana has had 1. National players of the year. Purdue's had 2, Zach Edey twice. And Indiana has had 0. Total head coaches. Purdue's obviously only had 1, Matt Painter. Indiana's had 6. Pretty telling right there. NCAA tournament appearances over the last 20 years, this being year 20. So obviously the NCAA tournament hasn't happened this year quite yet, but Purdue has made 15 of the last 18 NCAA tournaments in the last 20 years. The number's 18 because we haven't played the one this year yet and the COVID year. Indiana's only made 9 out of the last 18. Purdue has 24 NCAA tournament wins to Indiana's 10 in the last 20 years. Purdue's made the Sweet 16 7 times. Indiana's only made it 3, all 3 of those times coming under Tom Crean. But Tom Crean could never win. He could never win a second weekend game. Indiana has not made the Elite 8 in the last 20 years. Purdue's made it twice. Purdue's made 1 Final Four to Indiana 0. Purdue's played 4, lost it, but they've played for 1 national title to Indiana 0. The only category where Indiana leads Purdue is NIT invites with 5 to Indiana's 0. Oh, how far the Hoosiers have fallen. Okay, there is a way out of this, and it obviously starts with firing Mike Woodson at the end of the season. That's probably what's going to happen. Fans are fed up, all those things. Okay, sure, they could turn it around. They could win, their next 4 games against Purdue, Michigan State, Michigan, and Wisconsin, right? If they win 3 of the 4, the outlook on the rest of the season changes pretty drastically in a pretty short amount of time. But that probably won't happen. What's likely going to happen is Mike Woodson gets fired at the end of the year. If they keep him, for some reason. He should just clean house. Get rid of Galloway. Get rid of Anthony Leal. Get rid of Ballo. Get rid of all of them. Get rid of everybody. Except for maybe Luke Goody, because he actually cares. He just talks a little bit too much for me. Okay? So that's option number one. If they, for some reason, keep Mike Woodson, clean house completely. The other option is they're going to fire him. And if/when that happens, because I think we all know that is what we're headed towards, if that happens, hire a guy who is proven. That is really all that I want from Indiana. Okay, names are going to be thrown out like, oh, go hire Dusty May. Go hire Brad Stevens. Look, those two names, they're going to be all over the place. I mean, just all over the place. But here's just the hard truth. Brad Stevens is not leaving Boston. He's not leaving the Celtics when they're potentially about to repeat as NBA champions. And between Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, they are set up to go on one heck of a run. They are. Okay, so Brad Stevens, he's not going anywhere. He is not leaving Boston. Dusty May already has a big-time Big Ten job. Why would he leave? Because it's Indiana. Yeah, sure. He loves Indiana. Was a manager here. But everything he can accomplish at IU, he can accomplish at Michigan. Okay? I just, maybe he does leave because it's Indiana. I just don't think that he's going to. Once again, I don't care who they hire. Just go get someone who's proven. Okay, when you look at the last three head coaches at Indiana, Tom Crean, Mike Woodson, and Archie Miller, Tom Crean had more success than both of them. And part of that was because he'd actually won at other places. Oh, but Archie Miller won at Dayton. Everyone wins at Dayton. Dayton's been good every year of my life. I'm convinced. Okay, they seem to always make the tournament. Mike Woodson, sure, he coached in the NBA, but he'd never been a college basketball coach before. And it's different from the NBA. In the NBA, you have full-grown adults who, know that they're making a lot of money and don't want to jeopardize that. Now, you've got college kids who think that they're entitled to making a lot of money no matter what they do, and they jeopardize it all the time, apparently, even though Mike Woodson never wants to cut their checks. Okay, it's different. Okay, Tom Crean had won a lot of games at Marquette. He'd made it to the Final Four. He'd made the NCAA tournament 5 of his final 7 years at Marquette. Okay, he had proven himself over a specific length of time that he could win games in the world of college basketball, that he could win games in the tournament. Okay, he was proven. And IU calls him, and he comes down to Bloomington, and he kind of had it rolling there for a little bit. But, he's had more success than, Woodson and Archie Miller because he'd actually won consistently before. So if you're Indiana, go hire Chris Beard, because that dude's a proven winner, made a Final Four, coached in a national title game at Texas Tech. Look, if you can win at Texas Tech, you can win at Indiana. Go get Shaka Smart, who just kind of seems to win everywhere that he goes. Go hire Steve Alford, who won games at Iowa and has won everywhere that he's been. Go get TJ, I'm going to butcher this, TJ Otzelberger, head coach at Iowa State. A guy who, over these past couple of years has had Iowa State absolutely rolling. Like, people picked Iowa State to win the national title last year. It didn't happen. But, teams aren't picking your team to win the whole thing unless you're really freaking good. And Iowa State has been good under Otzelberger, however you say it. Okay? Just go get someone who has a history of winning games in college basketball. Don't do what the Colts did. Don't get some unproven guy to come in and take over the program. Don't do that. Go get someone who has won games before, someone who's going to be worth the boatload of money that they're going to get paid. That is what Indiana should do. Simple as that. When we come back here in about 4 minutes or so, just some, quick thoughts on a bunch of different things. All the NFL head coaching vacancies have been filled except for one. We're going to talk about those a little bit. Best hires, worst hires, those type of things. The Pro Bowl shouldn't be a thing anymore. News broke last night on a couple new Pro Bowl additions, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. 2 guys got added to the Pro Bowl. They have no business being in the Pro Bowl. I'll tell you who they are when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Unfiltered takes live here. The Real Jonathan Smith Show. This is Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube. Head over there, search for Indy Sports Ticket, subscribe, watch the live stream, jump in the chat, and be part of the conversation. It's a great time over there. Maybe you're watching on Twitter at __ Jonathan Smith if you want to follow me there. Also check out the station at Ticket 1430. Maybe you're listening via that Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you download your apps. The Pro Bowl. Just cancel it. Let's just get rid of it. We don't need it anymore. Russell Wilson and Drake May were announced as Pro Bowlers because no one wants to play in the thing. Okay? No one wants to play in it. Josh Allen's not going to play in it. Lamar Jackson's not going to play in it for the AFC. So we're going to get to sit back and watch Drake May, who played like not even half the season for New England, Russell Wilson, and Joe Burrow, who thankfully is going to play. And we don't even get to watch them play real football. It's flag football. Also, that combination of Drake May and Russell Wilson might be worse than Gardner Minshew and Tyler Huntley being Pro Bowlers just a couple years ago. Players clearly don't want to participate in this thing. It's not even real football anymore. It's flag football, and they got Eli and Peyton Manning there coaching the teams or whatever, and that's supposed to draw people in. I don't think that it really does. They do a couple other things, like they do a big obstacle course. I don't care to see them do that. I don't. They play dodgeball. Don't really care to see them do that either. They do a catch competition, think dunk competition, but lamer. That's what it is. Find something else to do. Like do a Madden tournament, something that's actually interesting, and I'll tune in. But I don't care to watch these guys play flag football. I don't. Now, if they wanted to, let's say, take some of the Pro Bowlers and have them play against like the Olympic flag football team, I would watch that. That would actually be very interesting to me. But if it's just, a bunch of NFL guys playing, I don't care to watch that. Sorry, I just don't. Speaking of the NFL, something that I actually care about, unlike the Pro Bowl, is head coaches. Who's coaching where? How does this impact the Colts? Who are we going to have to worry about? All those things. So, there were 7 head coach openings in the NFL this offseason. 6 of them have been filled. The Saints are the only ones waiting around to officially announce who their next head coach is going to be. Looks like it's probably going to be Kellen Moore, but we'll kind of see what winds up happening with that. The Patriots made the best hire of the cycle. They went out, they hired Mike Vrabel, a proven guy who won games with the Titans. Look, if you can win games with the Tennessee Titans, then you can win anywhere. Okay, Patriots, it's a good job. They've got Drake May. It's a good hire. They've got a quarterback. They're going to be fine for the next decade because they're the Patriots, and of course they are. They're also bringing in their own blood, which I think helps as well. They're not the only team doing that. We'll get to Aaron Glenn going to the Jets here in a second. The Bears made potentially the second best hire of this cycle, Ben Johnson. It's a great job because you've got Caleb Williams. Any job where you have a young quarterback already established, and you're just, the job just immediately becomes a good one. And the Bears have that. The interesting thing about Ben Johnson is we don't know if he's going to be a good head coach or not. Like, great coordinators aren't always great head coaches. Yes, Ben Johnson called great plays with a great offensive line and a good quarterback and great receivers and 2 really good running backs. Makes the job just like a little bit easier. But now he's going to go to the Bears, who don't have an offensive line, and the weapons are good. Are they as good as the ones in Detroit? I don't really think that they are. Can he create a culture? Can he do all those other important things that being a head coach requires? We're going to find out quickly. Coordinators aren't always great at that. We know that because Shane Steichen is coaching here, and he did a pretty good job with the Eagles. The Jets, they hired Aaron Glenn. Average job. It's 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers is your quarterback. They've got a couple good players, but nothing, super great. The defense will probably continue to be good because that's where a lot of their talent is. But offensively, I'm not convinced that they're going to be very good. And once again, like, great quarterbacks aren't always great coaches. I do like, though, that Aaron Glenn played for the Jets when the Jets were pretty solid. So he gets it. He knows what wins there. He tells this story, or I heard him tell this story of how, like, after he retired, it was just him on his couch yelling at the Jets on TV, and his wife was like, "You need to go coach," and so he did. And he's obviously had a lot of success. So once again, great coordinators are not always great coaches, but the fact that he's a former player, I think is going to help him in regards to setting a culture and doing all of those other things. Now, the one that impacts the Colts the most, the Jacksonville Jaguars hired Liam Cohen, and what has to have been the second most dysfunctional head coach hiring of the NFL offseason, only behind the Dallas Cowboys. This is a good job. Okay, like the Jaguars have some good players. Okay, the Brian Thomas Jr. receiver's good. Trevor Lawrence has won a playoff game. They had a couple good pass rushers. Like, there are good pieces on this team. The issue is they don't have a general manager right now. Liam Cohen, who they hired, they're paying him a bunch of money, and he's completely and totally unproven. That whole thing was crazy. Liam Cohen was basically going to return to the Buccaneers. They were going to make him the highest paid offensive coordinator in the NFL. Jaguars come in really late. They're like, hey, we'll pay you, Ben Johnson level money, and we'll let you pick the general manager. And he was like, okay, sounds good. So he ends up switching up there last minute. And I have a major issue with this, and I don't think that this is going to work out at all for the Jaguars. You say, well, why is that? Why isn't this going to work out? Liam Cohen he's barely proven as a coordinator. The dude was the offensive coordinator in Tampa Bay for 1 year. He had one good year as an offensive coordinator. Congrats to Baker Mayfield. He had the best year of his career under Liam Cohen. But it was 1 year. And, it's a little bit easier when you got Baker Mayfield throwing the football to Mike Evans, and you've got a good offensive line, and you've got this Bucky Irving kid who ended up being a really good, rookie running back. And once again, it was only 1 year. He did it in a bad division against the Saints, Panthers, and Falcons. Like, come on now. And the other thing is, Chip Kelly's famous for, talking about his time with the Eagles. And someone asked him why it didn't work out. He's like, I showed up, had some success. Defenses, they countered, and I didn't have a counterpunch to that. And because of that, Chip Kelly's now coaching college football once again. So does Liam Cohen have a counterpunch? We don't know. Like, at least with Ben Johnson, we saw him have success as the offensive coordinator of the Lions over multiple seasons. At least with Aaron Glenn, we saw him have success as the defensive coordinator for the Lions over multiple seasons. Liam Cohen, we've seen him do it 1 year. Does he have a counterpunch to whatever defenses are going to throw at him this next season? We're going to find out pretty quickly here. The most dysfunctional head coach hiring of the offseason, of course, they had to go to the Cowboys. Headlines everywhere. That's all that Jerry Jones really cares about. They hired Brian Schottenheimer. It just is just bad. Just bad. They fire Mike McCarthy just to promote the offensive coordinator, even though your offense wasn't really that great this year. It's an absolute circus. Good luck, Brian. Good luck dealing with geriatric Jerry and the rest of that front office, because it's not great. The Raiders, they hired Pete Carroll. This is, in my opinion, the second best hire of the cycle. I'm honestly surprised Pete Carroll took this job. Raiders are picking 6th. They don't really have a quarterback. They're not high enough to draft a quarterback. Sure, they've got a couple good players and Brock Bowers and Max Crosby, but they're not winning anything anytime soon. And I just kind of figured that if Pete Carroll took a job, it would be at a place where he could step in and win immediately. That division just became so much tougher. I mean, like, you got 4 great coaches in that division between Jim Harbaugh, Andy Reid, Sean Payton, and Pete Carroll. And of those 4, Pete Carroll has the worst quarterback. Sorry, Purdue fans, but Aiden O'Connell, not an NFL starter. Gardner Minshew, not an NFL starter either. Okay, so congrats to the Raiders for making a good hire, but it's going to be a while before they can figure anything out. Last team, the only team that has not hired anybody this offseason is the Saints. Okay, vacant. They haven't hired anybody yet. Seems like they're going to hire Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles. Had success in Los Angeles with the Chargers. Had a lot of success in Dallas. That's really kind of where he came on strong. But I don't know why anyone would want this job. other than the fact that it's one of 32 in the world. They're in cap hell. Their quarterback's Derek Carr. He's not very good. They've got more dead money than any other team in the NFL. Say, well, what is dead money? Dead money is the money being paid to players that are not on your roster anymore. Players that got cut, all those different types of things. And it's hard to rebuild a team when, you don't have the money to do it and you're paying guys that aren't even in your building anymore. So, yeah, good luck, Kellen Moore. If you do wind up taking that job, I thought what Joe Brady did, the offensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills, I thought he did the smart thing. He didn't take any job. He's like, nah, let me hang out here with Josh Allen for another year. I can reevaluate the cycle next season. That's, I think, the smartest move that anyone could have made. Kellen Moore, you should probably do the same thing. Just, stay in Philly for another year, hang out with Jalen Hurts, hang out with that awesome offensive line and Saquon Barkley, put out another really good year of offensive stuff, and then go find a job next offseason when it's not with the New Orleans Saints, who are in not a great spot to be. That's going to do it here on the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. If you did, head over to YouTube, Indie Sports Ticket, subscribe, watch the stream over there, be part of the conversation. I'll be back on the air tomorrow from 10 to noon. Going to do a lot more stuff on IU basketball. Luke Brenneman is set to join me tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Should be a ton of fun. Thank you again for taking the time out of your day to tune in. The Dan Dockett Show comes up next. Dane Fife at 1 o'clock should be a great show. The Dan Dockett Show comes your way here in about 5 minutes.